I find my creatives, they really struggle the worst with this stuff. They have a lot of high anxiety and stress over taxes. And so sometimes they don't end up filing, they put it off. And so I always felt like I was like a little bit of a therapist. Like, what do people go to therapy for? Like sex in their marriage and fights about money, right?
Welcome to the Artful Dollar. If you've ever wanted to sit down with a very experienced tax professional and ask them any question you wanted about filing back taxes or how to save the most money or how do you deal with the headache of filing taxes as a self-employed person, and you kind of wished that that tax person had the emotional intelligence of, let's say, a shamanic healer or a Reiki practitioner, well, today's episode is exactly that. I invited my good friend Sue Baer to talk taxes. And now Sue is a 30-year veteran as a CPA. She has been filing small business taxes for decades. She's seen it all. We go into some of the funnier things that she's actually seen. Believe it or not, taxes can actually be humorous and entertaining, but we just kind of have a real honest conversation about the unfairness of the tax system and how to navigate an unfair tax system. If it's designed to not be in your favor, how do we navigate that as best we can? How do we set you up, the listener? How do we give you the information that you need to be able to navigate the crazy, unfair, wacky world of self-employed small business taxes? And we even give you some resources. So in the show notes, there are links to documents that you might find useful to help you prepare your taxes, be more organized, stay on top of things, and ultimately save as much money as possible on your taxes. So without further ado, this is the conversation between me and my good friend, Sue Baer. Sue, welcome to the Artful Dollar podcast. I have been wanting to get you on this podcast for I don't know, a year or more. And so it's finally happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for anyone out there, I don't know that you would know Sue. You listen to me, but Sue is a CPA. Any other things? Well, you're a Reiki master.
Yes.
You're a CPA, yoga teacher, Reiki master,
shaman trained.
Shaman trained.
Lately, I've been writing a novel too.
Author, equestrian.
Equestrian.
Right? There's many titles, and I think that is like why I love talking to you about taxes, is because you bring such a holistic experience to a topic that people often feel is very heavy. And so there's the numbers and the tax laws and all the stuff, right? But then there's the emotional side, and most CPAs aren't talking about that. It's just like cut and dry, and I could always talk to you about all of it. And so that's why I've always appreciated having you come and lead classes in the Artful Dollar program. And yeah, now we're here to share your wisdom with the Artful Dollar podcast listeners.
Right on.
Right on. So where do we start with taxes? What do you want people to know about taxes? If there's one message you could share with the world, especially artists and freelancers, what would that be?
It's a super unfair system, I feel like, with the self-employment tax on top of income tax, and then for federal, and then if you have state on top of that. I just did the taxes for a family member recently, and they made about $12,000 net. And that's net, that's $1,000 a month. Like, how in the world do you live on that? And they happen to owe $3,600. Now, how, like, even I, with 32 years of experience, how do I explain that to somebody, let alone someone that I care about who's a relative? I'm like, in my sort of bandwidth, I'm like, do I want to do a documentary on this of how much people really don't have left over? And that's why people who are self-employed kind of bow out of it and don't want to claim their income because of that unfair situation. And then they're talking about making corporations zero tax, and people who have investment earnings and have long-term capital gains and dividends actually don't pay as much tax. They can pay as little as a 0% tax bracket versus someone paying $3,600 for $12,000 worth of income.
Right. If you didn't work for the money, well, then we won't tax you. But if you did work for the money, we're going to tax the hell out of you. And so I appreciate you just acknowledging that up front. It is an unfair system. It is. And having help navigating that unfair system is at least the best we can do, is give people who already have an unfair advantage or an unfair disadvantage, let's say, at least help them navigate, okay, how do I protect myself? How do I get the best out of this? And also, why? Why bother going through the rigmarole of filing and paying taxes? What benefit do we get? And why would we do this? I think is important. It's not just the what to do, but why are we doing it, you know?
The why is then you can put money in retirement, you can buy a car, you can buy a house. I mean, and hopefully you get over that hump of $12,000 and then you're making more. And then maybe you move to a different tax structure, which you've talked about, the subchapter S. Like, you've got to really be educated on this and see, you know, because we're going to have some new tax changes coming about in 2025. Trump had made the last tax changes, and now in 2025, he has the opportunity to make those again. So you've really got to have someone who's going to help you navigate those. You want to be maximizing deductions. And yeah, I mean, you know, you list off the reasons better than I do. Actually, how to file. I'm more like, I know how to file, and you're like, this is why.
Right. Well, one thing we talked about on an episode I did recently with this tattoo artist, Mike Chambers, we were talking about income insurance, like insuring your hands, or, you know, if you can't work for a period of time, you can pay monthly in insurance so that if that happens, you have income coming in. But you can't do that if you can't prove how much you're making. And if you don't have a tax return, you don't have bank statements, you don't have a P&L statement, you can't prove how much you're making to be able to insure yourself. So you're kind of playing it loose and fast in many ways if you're not having some record. Or even like during COVID, so many tattoo artists, friends of mine, weren't really on the books. And so I was able to collect unemployment insurance from the state because I was self-employed, but I'd been paying taxes. So I got a paycheck, you know, during that extreme circumstance. And so many tattoo artists couldn't collect, and they couldn't get SBA loans, and they couldn't do these things because they hadn't done it the way the system wants them to do it in the past. And you kind of tell yourself, oh, well, I don't need that, or that won't happen until it happens. And then, you know, so I kind of look at taxes as like, I don't know when I'm going to be grateful that I paid taxes. I don't know when that's going to be happen in the future, but there will be a point in the future that I'm going to be like, damn, I'm really glad I paid all my taxes and was on the books, because now I can buy that house, get that loan, expand my business, make more money, invest in retirement, you know, do these things that I couldn't possibly do. And so those are the reasons why we're having this conversation. And look, if you truly don't want to retire, and you never want to buy a house, and you don't want to expand your business, and you really don't want those things, I don't know, don't pay your taxes, I guess. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah.
You listed some really great reasons.
Yeah.
And I was the recipient of exactly one of those reasons. So a few years back, I ended up with cancer. And prior to that, 18 months prior to that, I'd gotten a disability policy. Now, I'd gotten one of those disability policies ensuring that, you know, I would have money in case I couldn't work. The whole reason I did it is because I horseback ride. And I thought, I'm going to go flying off a horse and get hurt. But I ended up getting cancer. And so I got to only just lay in bed and get cured because I was getting $3,600 a month, which was like amazing. And it like took care of bills, and I didn't have to worry.
I'm curious, what
getting ready.
Do you mind if I ask? And I know everyone's plans and things are going to be different, but like, what did that insurance policy cost? What was the premium per month? Do you know?
It was $1,800 a year. And so I only paid like a year and a half's worth of premiums, and then I got whacked with that. And so it paid for itself like for a lifetime.
Right. Wow.
And it was no waiting period either.
Right. Just instantly it comes into place.
Instantly. And like I said, I thought of it for horseback riding, but I ended up, and here I am 10 years later, and I'm healthy, and that's great.
You paid a year and a half, so that's 18 plus, let's say you paid $2,500, let's just say.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you got cancer, you couldn't work. You got $3,600 a month for how long?
For like 7-8 months.
For 7 or 8 months. It immediately paid for itself.
Yeah, immediately.
Wow. I mean, obviously, that's horrible that you were diagnosed with cancer, and I'm so glad to hear that you're doing well. But that's the thing, is that we never know. And so even if you never need it, and I hope no one ever needs to use their disability insurance, but it's that peace of mind. Like, especially if you got kids, or you've got people that depend on you, or you own a business, you own a shop, that peace of mind, you can go to sleep at night. Like if the unforeseen happens, no one expects to get cancer. No one expects to fall off a horse or get hit by a vehicle. But if and when it does, you can sleep good at night knowing that, like, my family's taken care of. Yeah.
Yeah, and extend that into life insurance. If you've got kids, you want to have life insurance, and say you don't get life insurance, you do accumulate credits with Social Security. And if something happens to you where you become disabled, you'll get Social Security disability. Or if something happens to you and your kids are under 18, your kids will get money until they're 18 based on your Social Security. So there's another reason to pay it.
Right. Sure. Right. If you're paying taxes, and I don't personally have a ton of faith in the Social Security system. Right. I like to put things in place that I know are going to be there. So yeah, especially at least a term life insurance policy. Like, at least if you have kids, get a 20-year term life insurance policy. It might only cost you a couple $100 a month maximum, and you can get insured for $300,000, $500,000. And I don't think people understand the purpose of life insurance. Term is not to pay your kid $500,000. That's not the purpose. The purpose is all those years that you would be bringing in $80,000 a year or whatever it is. It's replacing your income for X many years to make sure that they have money for school and birthdays and all those things that would be very difficult to provide on one income or whatever the situation might be. So this is the why. These are the whys. So I always like to start with the whys. Okay, so these are, if anyone's listening to this and you identify or resonate with any of these whys, they seem like good whys to you. Now let's talk about the what. So I know that can be a very broad topic, but at the core, I think, and this is something I see a lot of tattooers not doing, is they're not separating their business and personal income and expenses. They have everything going into one pile. And maybe I can tell you why it's not a good idea, but Sue, if I was your client and I was like, all my money's in one pile, what would you tell me?
Well, if you get audited, do you want the IRS to see you bought stuff on Adam and Eve or Victoria's Secret?
What's Adam and Eve, Sue? What's Adam and Eve? What's that?
Google it.
we know Sue's browser history now.
Yeah, you do. And it's happened. It happened to my client.
Really? Oh wait. Okay.
Yes.
So someone got audited, and then their vibrator came up as a business expense.
Well, because they combined everything.
Right.
It wasn't that they were doing it as a business expense. It's just,
sure.
Whatever.
The IRS agent was like,
nice. Where they go,
Right. So if you don't want to air out your dirty, I think that's probably the smallest reason. But yeah, if you don't want to air out your dirty laundry to your CPA and to an IRS agent, yeah, keep it separate. And then especially, like, let's say you have an LLC. And this is another thing I want to do, is people have a separate business account, but they're not really using it separately. Yes. And then something happens, maybe someone trips and falls, or someone sues you or something, and you have business and personal, it's a little bit wishy-washy. You have then broken the veil of the corporate veil, right? Broken the corporate veil.
Piercing the corporate veil.
Piercing the corporate veil. Shattering the corporate veil. Which sounds awesome, actually. I want to shatter the corporate veil. Let's shatter. No, you don't want to pierce the corporate veil, because then they'll say, oh, well, this business is not separate from your life, and now all of a sudden any of your assets that you own, your house, your insurance policies, your money in the bank, those are your assets, are now on the chopping block. And if you get sued, they can take that. So another reason to keep things separate. So apparently 88% of listeners have not left a review or subscribed. And I'm going to get right back to the podcast in just a second. But if you have found this episode helpful and you think that other people would benefit from listening, then all I ask in return is please just leave a quick review and subscribe. It'll take just 1 minute and it might help other tattooers and other artists find this podcast and help them out. So please, it would mean the world to me and it might actually make a difference for someone else. Thanks. Why else? Why is it helpful for you as an accountant to have your clients keep things separate?
Well, think about cost. If we have to go through your records, why do you want to pay us to go through your personal records? So it's going to cost you more in accounting fees.
Right. So literally you're paying more. And so this is something I'll ask people, like, are you using bookkeeping software? Are you using QuickBooks? People say, no, I just give my bank statements to my accountant.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that a bad idea?
Because we've got to kind of figure out, we don't know what's deductible. You know your business the best, right? And what's deductible. So if you put everything in a business account, we know that's concisely only business. And we've got to question each expense and also see every expense. So now you're exposing your personal life to a whole other person, right? And then you're paying more to get all that added up.
And even if you were to separate and only hand over the business account statements, right? It's still, you're paying more because then the accountant is then doing bookkeeping, which is not something you have to pay your accountant to do. Plus, the accountant doesn't necessarily know what all these expenses are, and that adds up. And so usually I find the accountants, there's nothing against you, Sue, but a lot of accountants can be kind of lazy. Have you noticed this?
It's strapped for time.
Okay, you know what? You're right.
Hiring talent.
You're right. I shouldn't make that assumption that they're lazy. They are strapped for time. You're right, because everyone's coming to them last minute, right? You
Sure.
And everyone else is like, oh, please help me do this thing, and it's like, you should have done that back when. I remember you told me once there's like a grading system that accountants have.
Yes. So, you want to be an A client because then you're going to get done on time. You're going to get the most quality service. If you're a D client, and we've got to sort through all your stuff, all that time that we allocated towards you was in the mush, in the weeds of all of the stuff. Versus if you're an A client, we don't have to spend all that time on that. Then we can talk about how can we save money for next year? Let's do some year-end planning. Let's think about some retirement. Let's do some consulting with some questions you have about your business. Maybe you want to phase out of it and sell your business. So then you're getting a little bit more high-end care versus the D client somebody just handed me all of their stuff and it's kind of a mess. So maybe they don't care about their tax situation. An A client cares about their tax situation. They're proactive versus being forced to be reactive when there's a problem.
And so if you're a D client, first of all, what makes someone a D client or a C or a D client? Like, what are they doing that the accountant is going to label them? I'm not going to give this person a ton of attention. What is that person doing?
Well, if they're not caring about their records might be a little, I like the word higgly-piggly. So a little chaotic. Higgly-piggly, chaotic. They come in last minute. They act like every year is their first year ever filing taxes. They're like, I just still don't get it. And they have no idea that there's such a thing as deadlines. They say, well, I didn't know April 15th was tax time, but they've been doing taxes for 10 years. Like, put it in your calendar, right? Your due dates. It's not really your accountant's responsibility to remind you of due dates. So someone who's coming in maybe during the year quarterly is an A client. They're coming in, they're asking questions. They're saying, here's my accounting. It's all up to date. Can you tell me how much I might owe for this quarter? Can you answer these questions? And then the CPAs or the person who's helping you's brain is turned on. They're like, yeah, here's some like really great questions versus here's this mess. I don't really feel like paying you that much, and I want it done in 2 days because I brought it in last minute.
Right.
And then the counsel like, oh, that's a bummer, and they'll try to help you. I mean, they really do try to help.
Yeah.
I don't want to discount support because I do feel like creative people need support more than others because, it's that right brain, left brain, and you're so invested in your art and it's wonderful. And I think that you should still do what you're doing and doing best. So get the support with the bookkeeping. It is confusing, and please forgive yourself for having that like guilt over it, or I don't do it right. In some ways, the very rare person can do all of their bookkeeping, be their own CFO, know all of this stuff, and do their art really, really well. So here you have Ryan, you've got this support team, you've got this help, but there's a good sized ramp to like get up that ramp and learn all of these things. So at a very minimum, have the support, know the due dates, and try to make it so that people can help you. Try to make it as easy as possible for people to help you with just these few tools.
Yeah. And you've given me a couple spreadsheets and different checklists and stuff. And I'm actually going to drop a link in the show notes for this episode to just give that to people and share it with them. I think anyone who wants to go from a D or a C client and start to become a B or an A client, and really you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your own business. It's not to please your CPA. It really does benefit you. I'll post some resources for people. I think that'd be helpful. But when someone tells me, especially someone that's doing like 80,000, 100,000 net after expenses, when they tell me that, oh, they keep track of everything on a spreadsheet, or they just highlight their statements, bank statements, I'm like, yo, you gotta use QuickBooks. You have to.
It's important to have the software because you think about just your level of time, and QuickBooks reconciles things. So if you're just adding things from pieces of paper, like adding your receipts or adding things from a bank statement, like how do you know if you add 100 more or you transpose a number? QuickBooks is a double entry system, so it's all reconciled, so it can only go in correctly.
And this is not, I'm not sponsored by QuickBooks, neither is Sue, but like it is, in my opinion, the best software out there. It's also the most widely used software. So you can easily give your accountant access to QuickBooks. So you don't need to walk into your accountant's office. Like I remember back in the day, before I used QuickBooks, I felt like I had to print stuff out and hand it. And it was like this weird, it's like we live in 2024. Like I just give my accountant access to my QuickBooks software. They can go in, pull everything they need. They give me a checklist, an online portal that says, check these off and you're done. Filing my taxes now is the easiest, simplest. It's never been easier because I've taught myself. And that was actually, I think, one of the first things that got me interested in finance at all was taxes, because I opened up a private tattoo studio and it was becoming tax time. And I knew I had all these business expenses, and it was the first year I started using a business account. So half the year was all mixed up in one pile. And then the other half of the year I had it separated. And I was just stressing. I was just like, oh my God, like this, it was weighing on my mind, like starting probably around this time of year, like November, December, it starts to come on mind like, ooh, taxes are it's gonna be a thing. And then January hits, and then February, and you're like, oh, I know I got to do this. And then March. And I was like, man, this stress, this energy that I'm investing into taxes, if I actually figured out how to deal with taxes properly and I didn't have to stress about it, I'd probably have a lot more energy to pour into my tattooing, into my art. And I literally remember there was a moment, I remember where I was standing in my small, tiny first private tattoo studio when I was like, maybe getting on top of my taxes is going to make me a better tattoo artist. And once I tied those things together, like the why, like why am I doing this? Like without that why, the what is like, you don't do the what, you know? But then I had a really good why. I was like, I'm going to be a better business owner. I'm probably going to save more money on my taxes. I'm going to have more energy to pour into my art during the end of the year when I'm normally stressing about taxes. It just made sense. And that was like a moment I remember that inspired me. So I don't know if that helps anyone listening to tie your creative practice to your tax I know it's totally sounds psychotic, but it helped me out a lot. Yeah.
You're so right. And thank you for bringing like the stress side into it, because people think, oh, it's easy for somebody like me. Maybe that's true, but I also have a 4-year degree in it and I passed the CPA exam. And it's like, I find my creatives, they really struggle the worst with this stuff. They have a lot of high anxiety and stress over taxes. And so sometimes they don't end up filing, they put it off, and it's so tied to money. So I always felt like I was like a little bit of a therapist. Like, what do people go to therapy for? Like sex in their marriage and fights about money, right? So
Yeah.
money is such a hot topic for people, and people are so stressed. And so there is a pretty big shutdown factor when it comes to money. I've seen people not open their mail. Do know that that's really normal. Putting off filing taxes for a while, like, I don't understand this shit. I don't want to deal with it. And then they shut
Right,
down,
just
and then
put
they
it on
don't
the
file
back
for a couple
burner.
years, and it snowballs, right? And we were
Yeah.
going to talk about that, and just know that that is very normal. And at this time of year, actually, right now you've got a little bit of a window before tax season starts. Everyone thinks when they want to get back into filing again, they start thinking about it around
Right.
April 15th, and that's when the accountants are super busy.
Right.
Right
And
now,
also
they've got this
don't
window.
give your accountant all your stuff on April 14th either. Like, that's
No.
April 15th is pretend the deadline is April 1st. Pretend and aim to get all your paperwork in before April 1st. I honestly aim for like end of February, early March is my goal, because
That's
I don't want to
smart.
stress about it for a whole extra month. I want to get it done, know what I owe, and, be done with it.
But if you've got back taxes, like, now's a good time because they don't have any deadlines right now. Right. Right now they've got, November and December. There's also the holidays. And actually part of January is also really not that busy for an accountant because people's W-2s come in, people's stuff is not really coming in. As you said, you aim for February. So it's a good time, like if you're behind a year or two, to kind of do that now. Another thing that's a really good idea to do this time of year is now would be a good time to also form that LLC or that subchapter S and kind of start fresh in January and think about doing that and starting a new entity, if that makes sense. Like, have some consulting appointments with an accountant who sees your situation and says, oh yeah, you'd be better as an LLC or you'd be better as a subchapter S. So now you have time to do a little bit of year-end planning.
Yeah. So let's break. There's two things you just brought up. One is, if you're in the position where you've got some back taxes, 1 year, 2 year, 10 years, whatever it is, I want to talk about that real quick. And then let's talk about, oh, well, maybe I'm making more money and I should probably think about changing my business structure to save money on taxes. So people who are dealing with paying back taxes, first of all, after 4 years of working with tattooers and their finances, I would say I've worked with hundreds of tattooers, probably like 30 to 40% of them have back taxes. So it's very common. It's nothing to feel shame about. You're a creative, you might be neurodivergent or whatever you got going on. And these things, people struggle with these things. So you're not a bad person. Let's drop all the shame about it. What do you want that person to know that might help them take the first steps to dealing with back taxes? Maybe they've got 10 plus years. What should they know?
When people come in, instead of having them file all the way back those 10 years, because that just feels like monumentally overwhelming, I say do the last 3. So let's do 21, 22, and 23.
Yeah.
And then get you back sort of on track with those. Because chances are IRS, I mean, it's not like you guys are getting 1099. So IRS isn't necessarily looking for you. And then if you want to do the other years, or you go, oh, that wasn't that bad to catch up. And let go of the imperfection, like having every single thing be exact and having to learn QuickBooks from scratch. Like, just be a little raw about it. Just get it done, get some numbers. Like Ryan said, he's going to put those worksheets in there, and those are nice to just fill in, to just get you a start of like where you were in those last 3 years, and just stop the bleeding. That's what all you're looking to do, is stop the bleeding. And then once you do that, you can catch up.
Right. And so break it into bite-sized chunks. Know that you don't have to deal with all 10 years all at once. Deal with the last year. To deal with 1 year at a time, and then file 3, but you break it into at least, 1 to 3 years. Get that prepared. File that, because the thing is, your back taxes accrue interest. And the interest rate and penalties is not cheap. It is akin to a credit card interest rate. After penalties and fees, it is high. And those penalties and interest rates don't start when you file taxes. So when you file the back taxes, that's not when, oh, now I start paying interest. No, you started accruing interest when you should have filed years ago. So that bleeding that you're talking about has been bleeding. And I think that's something people don't realize, is it's not like, oh, well, if I don't file, then I won't owe more. No. the sooner you file, the sooner you stop the bleeding, because the sooner you can either get on a payment plan or get out a personal loan, because sometimes a personal loan might even have a lower interest rate than what the IRS will give you. So it might actually benefit you if you have a decent credit score and you have a decent income and you're proving it. You can actually qualify for a personal loan or a business loan or something to pay the back taxes at a lower interest rate than what the IRS would give you. So just note there's like a ton of options. Again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me or your CPA or tax professional to get some guidance on this stuff. The worst thing you can do is continue to pretend that we don't need to do anything about it. That's the worst thing you can do. So that's helpful for anything else with back taxes that I can't remember. We've talked about this a couple times in the Artful Dollar.
Well, if you owe back taxes and say they are too much and you don't have a lot in assets, like you're still growing your business and you filed all these taxes and then you owe $25,000, and then there's interest and penalties on top of that and it just keeps accruing and you're like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to pay that. And you're in a position where you don't have a lot of assets in your name, you can do, and you've got to kind of get a professional of someone to do this. And it's called an offer in compromise. You talked about the payment plan and taking out a personal loan, but another option would also be the offer in compromise. And more people than you think actually qualify for that. If you're essentially considered insolvent, meaning your liabilities, what you owe, is more than what you actually own, your assets, then you can possibly qualify, and actually they'll forgive all those taxes. You hear all these, radio calls and things about that, and that's actually a real thing.
Sorry, say it one more time. File for forgiveness?
Offer and compromise.
Offer, not forgiveness. Offer and compromise.
Yeah.
If someone wanted more information on that, should they just Google it?
They should, but just be careful for some of those billboard people. See if you can find someone that your accountant can recommend you to. That's not just kind of one of these big companies that ends up taking more money from you than the IRS.
Right. And maybe even check out Reddit and say hey, has anyone worked with someone and gotten an offer and compromise and it was successful? Get a reputable source to help you with that, because you're absolutely right. There are companies that they'll charge you for this service and then they don't actually help you, and then you owe them and you owe back, and then you're just double fucked, and we don't want you to get double fucked. That would be bad. Yeah.
No.
I'm going to get right back into it, but real quick, I wanted to let anyone who's feeling uncertain about your financial future know that, one, you are not alone. I speak to hundreds of tattooers and artists, small business owners all around the world every year, and it's very common to feel overwhelmed, confused when it comes to saving, investing, taxes, and all that stuff. And two, if you're looking for help with this stuff, I want to make it very easy for anyone who is serious about taking control of their financial future to book a one-on-one call with me and get clear around what actions you can take to build financial security and freedom. So if you're interested in that, or you know someone that might be, you can hit the link in the show notes below to book a one-on-one financial future session with me personally. Now, I do charge a small fee for this, but I want to make it as accessible as possible. I also want to note that I take about 5 or 6 of these calls per month, so availability is limited, but I would love to get to chat with you and see how I can help. Yeah, so great. People take on your back taxes. Now, let's say you're in this very different set of concerns. You're making, I would say, at least $80,000 net after business expenses. So maybe you're making $100,000 or $120,000 or $150,000 or whatever it is. After you write everything off, you earned $80,000 of net income, and you want to reduce your taxes on, or you earned more, right? $100,000 or whatever. You want to reduce your taxes, right? That, would you say 80,000 is about the benchmark?
Yeah, but everybody's situation is going to be different. So, and remember, there's a lot of rules around changing the entities and the things you have to follow, which we're not going to get into today. But it's good to have someone look at your tax situation and say, this is about how much money you could save. And then you can decide if the admin is worth it. Because remember, there's also personality. 80,000 is great to start saving taxes. But if you still have that personality where you're commingling all the funds, you like to be a little messy about it, you don't really have a bookkeeper, even if you're making 150,000, it's just going to be tons and tons of fan mail like your Bon Jovi, but it's all coming from the IRS. So no fun.
Yeah, and I have had that be the case. I've talked to tattoo artists that are making net 80, 100,000, and they know they could be saving money on an S corp, and they formed it. But I'm like, cool. So are you paying yourself a W-2 salary? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, that's illegal to not pay yourself a W-2 salary if you're the owner of the S corporation. Do you have a payroll service? Did you file state? A lot of people will file for an S corp, but then they won't elect S corp status with the state. They'll just do it federally. I think I had that issue, and I had to rush to figure it out, which you helped me with. Thank you. If you're the type of person that isn't going to do the due diligence to be on top of the paperwork, the filing dates. Also, S corporations file March 15th. The corporation's profit loss statement is due filing, and then your personal tax return is due April 18th. So there's different dates. There's a payroll service. There is a fair upfront kind of cost to cover the payroll service and file two separate tax returns. So you're paying more money to operate as an S corp, but if the juice is worth the squeeze, the time, the energy, and the money invested into doing this is for you less than the amount of money you save by doing this in the long run in the end. And I think you do have to have a longer term perspective on yourself, on your business. I hate doing paperwork. I hate filing taxes. I hate this stuff. But I knew I was really excited by, oh, well, if I learn it, again, I tied it to my creative practice. If I learn how to operate as a S corp and do payroll and pay myself dividends and do it the way it's meant to be done, I'll save this money. I'll get to keep more of my money. I can build the future for my family that I want. And so I think even though I hate doing this stuff, that's what inspired me to get more organized. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is a tax savings. But where the tax savings comes from is it cuts into your Social Security. So
Sure.
then you don't want to just take that tax savings and be like, all right, I can buy more stuff on Amazon. You kind of want to roll those saved funds into a retirement account that you can control, because of course, Social Security, that dies with you. So your heirs can't inherit that. You don't have the flexibility to use it when you want. So then you want to kind of roll that tax savings, because you are reducing your Social Security, and save for retirement, put it in some investments, get it working for you.
I couldn't agree more. I think viewing it as simply a tax savings is almost not even the best way to do it, but rather viewing it as okay, I'm doing this so that I can control my financial future by taking what I would normally give to the government, which they would put a little bit into Social Security, taking that sum of money and putting it into my own retirement account for my future, or a 529 account, or a health savings account, or all these other tax advantaged accounts that reduce your tax burden. So it's like you save money on your taxes by operating as a subchapter S entity, and then you take the tax savings, you put them into a tax deferred account, saving you even more money on your taxes. And these are the things that people say they're loopholes. They're not really loopholes. They're just the rules of the game. That's all.
Yeah.
When you learn the rules of the game, right, like any board game, once you really understand the rules, then you can really play the game. But if you don't understand the rules and you're just moving your pieces around, and you're like, wait, why do I have to move back 3 steps? I don't understand. It's like, well, you can complain about it, or you can learn the rules of the game and play the game. And again, it is an unfair system and it sucks. But is the alternative of saying, you know what, fuck the system, pirate life for me, not going to pay any taxes, is that going to serve you in the long run? Is that going to get you where you want to go? Or is it going to help you to say, you know what, the system's fucked, but if I do learn the rules, I can then put myself in the best possible position both now and in the future. And that's what I have personally chosen to do, and hope to inspire others to do as well. I think another thing I realized is I was so afraid to earn more money when I wasn't, when I was on the pirate ship. I was on the pirate ship for years early on in my tattoo career. I was afraid because it's like, ooh, if I earn too much, then they're going to find out. And so you have this psychological income cap. And when I opened up a studio and then I wanted to get a bigger studio and then rent out booths and make more money, I realized, I was like, if I just pay the fucking taxes, I can make as much money as I want, and I don't have to be afraid of it. And I can learn the rules and reduce the tax burden. And like mentally, there was a mindset shift when I went from on the pirate ship to onto dry land, and paying taxes. Mentally, I was like, ooh, I can make as much, and my income did grow, and it has continued to grow because I'm not worried about staying under the radar and, oh my God, are they gonna find out, you know?
It's so funny you say that because you were capping yourself, and you didn't even know this, but I would call people who didn't file and people who were under the radar submarines.
Yeah.
Submarines.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. And I found you're right. When people stop capping themselves, then they've got the ability to fly.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything becomes possible.
Yeah.
As I always tell everyone, when it comes to marketing or business or finance, it's 10% strategy, it's 90% mindset.
Mm-hmm.
All the tax strategy in the world won't help you if your mindset, your emotional, energetic, spiritual relationship to taxes, and you have a spiritual relationship to taxes. Everyone does. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I feel if a number feels right or if a tax return feels right. I mean, you can check the numbers all day long, but even yourself in your gut, like, do my numbers feel right? Does this feel right what I'm doing? Yeah, you've got to have that. It's like that gut or spiritual connection. I mean, money is just energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you trust your intuition. So if your intuition is saying, I should probably do things differently than the way I'm doing them now, listen to that. And don't overwhelm yourself with all the things that you could be doing. Like we said, take the next right action. Book a call with an accountant or do a Google search for a solution. I always like to break things down and like, what's my next right action? Like if I want to get to from A to Z, like what's B, you know? And then, okay, well, I did B. Okay, now what's C? And I just focus on that, what the next right action is, and repeatedly take that action. And then all of a sudden I'm at Z. And it was like, oh, wow, that actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It never is. Like the big whatever tax thing or money thing or life thing, I find our minds, we create it to be a bigger obstacle mentally than it actually is in reality.
Very true. I really love that. The next right step. Right. So are you going to make a call to someone for support? You're like, I really need support. I really need the accountant. I'm going to maybe go on a community board and ask who people like to work with. Right. I'm going to hire that bookkeeper. Or maybe I have a friend and she's home or he's home with their kids and does this kind of thing on the side, make a little extra money. Do I need a bookkeeper?
A friend of my mom did like volunteer business consulting, like help with small businesses. And I asked her, I was like, hey, would you show me? I don't know how to do a profit loss statement. I didn't know what a profit loss statement was, so I didn't even ask that question. I was just like, I don't know how to do money and business and taxes. Would you show me? And we scheduled time. I came over to her. I didn't burden her. I didn't make her meet me. So I went over and she showed me what to do. But you have to ask, I think that's maybe like, if we want to end on one last note, you should feel good about the person you're working with when it comes to your money. If you feel like this person isn't answering my questions, or you feel uncomfortable asking questions, or you feel shame, like trust your gut in that. I think you should feel as comfortable with your accountant as you do with your therapist or your best friend. That's my personal opinion. Is it always going to be that awesome? Probably not. But as close to that. And if you're getting a weird spidey sense of like, something's just not lining up right, doesn't feel good, then don't keep working with that person. Find someone, and you might have to work with a few people until you find that person. But when you do find that person, don't keep working with the same person, because they can help you. And I know you're no longer taking clients, but any advice for people searching for CPAs? Any other advice we can give people?
Well, as you said, it's a virtual world. So you used to bring your stuff physically in, and a lot of people would switch from people who they really loved as accountants to say, well, I moved and now I need to have someone local. the nation is now local. It's the internet, right?
Yeah.
As you said, the portal. So find someone, even energetically, you can look at a website and be like, yeah, this person is speaking my language.
Yeah.
They understand what I'm talking about. So it's going to be so individual for everybody of who to find, what works for them. But get support.
You mean CPAs need to market and like talk to their potential clients through their copywriting on their website and resonate emotionally, mentally, psychologically to get clients? I just always either talking about finance or marketing here. But yeah, I mean, I like every business, it's if you go onto someone's website, there's a certain vibe. You can tell a lot about the type of business that this is from the copywriting, the energy, what's being said. And I picked a dentist not too long ago. I found them on some website. I was looking for dentists. I was having a hard time. And then I found this one dentist, and then they had an Instagram page. And I went to their Instagram page, and like they were like on there talking, and I got like a vibe of who they were. And I was like, this is who I want to work with, because I could sense who it was before I booked the appointment. So
Yeah, so either in your mouth or in your books.
in your mouth, in your books, or wherever it goes, wherever you put it. Anything else, Sue? I mean, it's always just a pleasure talking with you. I always appreciate your time and your perspective. So yeah, if there's anything else, let me know. But if not, thank you.
No, thank you, Ryan. And I'm really impressed and proud of you for all of the things, like you're parroting so many things back that I've taught you over the different like calls and classes and stuff we've done. But you know it and you're putting it in your own terms, and you're right on with the stuff you're saying. In some ways you don't even need me, but I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm sure come tax season, we'll be hitting you up and having you come back and teach some lessons in the Artful Dollar. So I look forward to that. And yeah, for anyone that needs support, we'll put some resources down below. Feel free to reach out to me, shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm happy to answer any questions I'm qualified to answer. And if not, I'll point you in the right direction. All right, if you found this episode helpful, one of the best ways for you to help other artists is to share this episode. Leave a review and subscribe. It helps other people find my channel, and you never know what a difference it might make for someone else. Plus, I will forever be grateful for your support, so I just want to say thank you and have a great rest of your day.